So, guys, this is big news. Election news
Guys, this is big news. I'm trying to give a shit.
out of Russia. Well, the U.S. is apparently, according to a couple major media organizations, condemned Russia's election crackdown as Putin's party wins a big majority.
Yeah, because he jailed everyone that was running against him.
Right? Okay, so you would think that would be a big deal. That's something that's sort of interesting. So, according to Axios, major gains by an opposition group were erased on Monday in Russia
Erased on Monday.
after the Electoral Commission added millions of online votes. A delayed count that drew calls of foul play. I'm just reading to make sure I get it right. For its lack
Even reading, you're getting things wrong.
of transparency. Seriously?
Yes, seriously. Yeah, they don't have paper backups, for example, like we do. Like we had recounts in all these elections. They actually have the ballots. They don't even bother with that in Russia. He's jailing his opponents. It's not even close. But please tell us how the United States of America is no better than Putin's Russia.
Let me read that again, just so we're all clear what the U.S. is upset about. I'm going to move this over a little bit.
Well, you're not. I mean, obviously, because your dad's buddy's still technically in charge.
lean, but major gains by opposition groups, this is all in Russia, were erased Monday after the Electoral Commission.
Yeah, opposition groups. The party in power that had absolute control over the elections were able to manipulate them. And no matter, what the opposition did, they were obviously, there were dirty tricks put in by Putin, but he was in control of the entire election. It's as if, I don't know, whoever was president last year had their thumb on the scale in the United States election and won because they were able to eliminate votes for another person by, I don't know, maybe arranging for red states to puff the vote for them digitally.
Added millions of online votes, a delayed count that drew calls of foul play for its lack of transparency. It's interesting. I guess it's fine if those things happen in the United States. There's no lack of
They didn't happen in the United States. Thanks very much, honorific.
transparency if similar types of things happen to the U.S. I don't want to say that it exactly happened that way.
It didn't at all, actually.
But read it again and tell me, where have you heard something rather similar?
Oh, obviously, your dad is claiming that our country is no better than Russia and that our election systems are no better than the Russian systems, even though in this analogy, he would be the Putin in this situation.
Apparently, the Babylon Bee and South Park have come together to become not a cartoon and a parody site, but reality in the world in which we live. You literally can't make this stuff up anymore.
You don't have to make it up. This happens every time they have an election in Russia. This is what Putin does. Putin rigs the election every time. This isn't even related to us. What, do you want to go back to Saddam Hussein's elections and do those as well?
There's something eerily familiar about this.
Yeah, except your dad's a loser. It's very similar, except your dad couldn't manage to. I mean, he tried to cheat the election. He tried to get Republican governors and secretaries of state to puff his vote everywhere and apparently fill them with fraud, and Mike Lindell's found it everywhere. But they flipped a bunch of votes from Biden to Trump, and still it wasn't enough. Just too many people voted. Oops.
We've obviously had the safest election ever, but when similar things happen in other areas, the lack of transparency.
Other areas? You mean other countries? You mean kleptocracies run by criminal oligarchs? A guy who makes, on paper, $146,000 a year, but is worth $200 billion?
Is called and condemned. Remember, Your memes will get fact-checked, but ballots will not, folks, right? Essentially. I gotta really...
We are fact-checking their ballots. We don't believe what Russia is putting forward. We do recounts if they're necessary in our country, and we have. And your dad lost again and again and again.
Get all of these things, because then they'll say you're going to get thrown off. It's almost as though we live in Russia, right?
No, not at all, actually. In this case, let's say we flip this side, that in this analogy you're putting forward, that Biden is Putin and he arranged for this chicanery. If you were on social media making this video, you'd be scooped up and put in jail like Alexei Navalny. But again, Alexei Navalny's a freedom fighter and you're a third-generation rich kid.
Story, different channel. So I think we've all seen this before. It feels like perhaps they've learned from others. Or maybe others have learned from the Russians. I don't know.
That is the truest thing you've said the whole time. You don't know. So far, we're almost, we're 2/3 of the way through this. Nothing has been said. I mean, there's a little bit of like, obviously, it's like watching someone make a sock puppet out of cocaine.
Accused, but when major U.S. headlines and major
headlines, that's the, they're very dangerous. I don't know if you've ever been around a headline, but it's, they have no back, no legs, no nothing. It's just a giant lion's head, and they're biters. I'm just saying.
News networks are calling that out and highlighting that. Seems like those people had no issue with something that seems to me, at least, eerily familiar. So I thought you'd want to see that.
It's not eerily familiar, except for the fact that your dad and this guy have a lot in common. Except this guy successfully rigged his election and your dad's a massive failure.
Understand exactly where we are as a democracy.
Oh, he's air quoting that we're a democracy. All right. Well, hey, your dad was running the place for 4 years and suddenly we're not a democracy anymore. Coincidence? I think not.
And where we are in terms of hypocrisy, which is at an all-time low and an all-time high level of absolute ridiculous insanity. And guess what?
All right. Well, if you're just going to rearrange words at an all-time, I'm glad we're at an all-time low of hypocrisy.
You're seeing it in results, right? The most popular president...
You're seeing it in results.
Ever. Seems to be greeted across the country, in stadiums across the country, with FU chants. It's actually the biggest sporting trend, perhaps, in the world at the moment. But he's the most popular ever, and don't you forget it, or you will be canceled, you will be ostracized, and you will be put, probably, in the gulags.
In the gulags, right. I guess this is live from the gulags. By the way, I noticed you've turned your phone upright so that we don't see the work you've continued not to do on this shelf right here. That's it. That's the whole thing. Because we recognize that Russia's a kleptocracy and a criminal enterprise posing as a country. That's like, oh, they'll point it out in Russia, but not here. Perhaps, and I know your dad doesn't believe this, and I know you don't believe this, but perhaps America is an actual country and a good country, even with its failures, even with its shortcomings, is a better country than Russia, especially when it comes to democratically electing our leaders. But to believe that, you'd have to believe that Trump could be installed by military force or a bunch of assholes storming up the stairs and beating cops nearly to death. So,
I don't know, maybe I could.
The upside of this story is that we all know that has it been 10 days since he's posted a video? I think something like this is the 21st. Well, this sure is interesting. That was the name of it. Plot twist, Dems call out alleged voter fraud in Russia. Dems do it. Unbelievable. This was a news story that he was talking about. Everybody's calling it out. It's not alleged voter fraud. It's actual voter fraud. I think the shocking part of the story is that this asshole thinks it's alleged voter fraud in Russia. I think we found Even Putin doesn't believe he was legitimately elected, but apparently Don Jr. does. But we're the America Last crowd. Right. Okay.